Intensifying their attacks daily, those who witnessed the assault by Israeli forces last night were left perplexed, believing that the Israeli terrain was prepared for an operation. However, Peter Lerner, the spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces, emphasized that the night event was not a ground assault. In addition, he asserted that the ground offensive that is in progress by Israeli forces will be of significantly greater magnitude compared to that event. Prior to this incursion, the Israel Defense Forces had arranged its forces on the Gaza border in such a way that many came to assume that an Israeli ground assault was underway. The Issadiin al-Qassam brigades claimed to be facing an imminent Israeli offensive in the Gaza enclave. In a statement, they said that fierce clashes had broken out in the vicinity of Beit Hanun, northern Gaza, and in the center near Buij on October 7th. Following the Hamas attack, reflections arose about a question that had been on our minds. Why did an Iranian-backed organization launch an all-out assault on Israel, while Hezbollah, also backed by Iran, did not carry out an attack on Israel? Large-scale against Israel? We searched hard for an answer to this question, and various theories emerged in our deliberations. We were convinced that Lebanese Hezbollah militants were waiting for a serious opportunity to attack Israel. The events of the previous night confirmed that our predictions were considerably close to reality. On the last day, Hezbollah militants from Lebanon carried out an attack on Israel's northern border, coinciding with a major incursion by Israeli forces. This monumental raid hinted that a ground offensive against Hezbollah militants, as well as Hamas militants, was already underway. Following the Hezbollah attacks, the northern border separating Lebanon and Israel does not differ at all from the border with Gaza. Tensions have risen dramatically in the last 24 hours and continue to grow with each passing minute. Hezbollah militants carried out an assault on an Israel Defense Forces position in the Golan Heights, where tensions were already palpable. However, rockets fired by Hezbollah, the militants who had infiltrated Syria, generated an immediate response from the Israel Defense Forces, who carried out a vigorous air attack against a Hezbollah position in southern Lebanon. The images of the impact of the Israeli airstrike eloquently reflected the annihilation of Hezbollah's military objective, accompanied by a monumental explosion. Details of this attack were disclosed on the Israel Defense Forces' official social media platforms. However, despite the firm response received from the Israel Defense Forces after their unsuccessful assault, Hezbollah militants did not cease their efforts to launch attacks against Israel in various areas of the north during the day. In this context, the Israel Defense Forces reported that its air defense systems managed to intercept a surface-to-air missile aimed at an Israeli military drone coming from Lebanon. Fortunately, the Israel Defense Forces drone was unscathed in this attempt. The shocking images of the incident, captured from Tiberias, northern Israel, were shared on the official account of the Israel Defense Forces on social networks, clearly evidencing the trail of smoke left by the Israeli air defense missile. In recent weeks, Hezbollah has made repeated attempts to attack Israeli military drones over northern Israel and southern Lebanon. However, the Israel Defense Forces managed to intercept the missile in mid-flight and responded firmly to the source of the missile fire. In addition to this attack, there was information about the plans of Lebanese Hezbollah militants to launch attacks with anti-tank guided missiles in 2 different locations. One of these attempted attacks was intercepted by the Israel Defense Forces, who confirmed that they had hit a terrorist cell that was preparing to carry out an attack with anti-tank guided missiles from southern Lebanon. The Israel Defense Forces carried out a drone attack against a terrorist cell in southern Lebanon that was in the process of preparing to launch an attack with anti-tank guided missiles in an area near the community of Hanita in the northern Lebanon. Images of this audacious Israeli attack were shared publicly. In parallel, another attempted attack with anti-tank guided missiles planned by Hezbollah activated the warning sirens in the Upper Galilee communities of Misgav Margaliot, located near the Lebanese border. Shortly after the sirens sounded in these areas, similar sirens were activated in the Western Galilee, in Arab al-Arams, also in the vicinity of the Lebanese border. Fortunately, no injuries were reported in this Hezbollah attack. In response, Israeli defenses and security forces took action, carrying out artillery bombardments. In recent weeks, the militant group Hezbollah has carried out numerous missile and rocket attacks targeting IDF positions and Israeli cities in northern Israel. The Israel Defense Forces said several rockets were fired from Lebanon toward an area near the northern community of Sarit. Fortunately, the attack caused no injuries or damage. In response, Israeli forces carried out artillery bombardments in the direction of the sources of the rocket fire. Almost immediately after this incident, rocket warning sirens were heard in the northern city of Shula, located near the Lebanese border. In a period of time following these alarms, Hezbollah fired 3 rockets in the direction of the Shula area, northern Israel. These rockets impacted in clear areas, without causing injuries or significant material damage. These attacks put the Israel Defense Forces in a position that required a forceful response. After facing multiple Hezbollah attacks throughout the day, Israeli forces took the initiative and began attacking various Hezbollah-owned targets in southern Lebanon. These attacks included an assault on the Hezbollah compound and several observation posts of this military group. The audiovisual material captured during this operation attracted attention on social networks, showing how, after a massive explosion, all Hezbollah targets in the area were completely destroyed. This action by the Israel Defense Forces demonstrates that the Israeli military is taking a proactive approach on the northern border, despite the recent outbreak of conflict on the Gaza border. The Israeli defense reorganized its forces, redirecting most of them from the north to the south and deploying reservists to the north. This strategic decision was made due to concerns that if Lebanese Hezbollah militants launched attacks from the north while Israeli defense forces were engaged in extended ground operations on the southern front line, reservists in the region could find themselves overwhelmed. Indeed, this situation could lead to the need to repatriate numerous soldiers stationed in the Gaza Strip to their positions in the north, which would weaken the Israeli forces facing Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip. For this reason, Israeli forces must keep Lebanese Hezbollah militants at bay, doing everything possible to prevent their approach to the northern border and thus ensure the security and effectiveness of their operations on both fronts. The purpose of the attacks carried out by Hezbollah forces directly aligns with the theory put forward. This Iranian-backed military group is making efforts to hinder the Israeli military's planned ground operation in order to prevent Israel's defense forces from completely eliminating Hamas. However, whatever strategy Hezbollah militants adopt, it is unlikely that they will be able to prevent the Israeli army from entering the Gaza Strip and achieving the complete eradication of Hamas. After the tragic episode of October 7th, senior Israeli officials have reiterated their determination not to stop until Hamas is completely eliminated. Looking closely at this issue, an additional question arose. Will the Israeli Defense Forces carry out a ground operation against Hezbollah in Lebanon after having neutralized Hamas elements in Gaza? The answer to this question seems to be hinted at in the words of former Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Netanyahu stressed that following the attacks by Hamas militants, their reach would not be limited solely to the Gaza Strip, and stressed that significant changes are coming across the Middle East. This suggests that Israel's cleansing campaign, which began with Hamas, will extend until there are no more Iranian-backed militant groups left in the region. Israel is willing to use all necessary resources and efforts to achieve this goal, making clear its commitment to act accordingly. As Netanyahu put it, the war that broke out on October 7th will not be quick or easy. Accordingly, the Israel Defense Forces will respond forcefully to all attempts by militants to hinder Israel. After the start of the war, the Israeli army has mobilized a large number of soldiers to the south. However, while soldiers may have withdrawn, the Israeli military has maintained a significant military vehicle presence in the region. This suggests that should Israeli forces need to carry out an operation in Lebanon in the near future, they will have a plentiful arsenal of armored vehicles in the area to deal with Hezbollah militants. We appreciate your attention and remain at your disposal for any other questions or information you may require.